Journalist Hangout. I still have Kaide Ladende right here. And we also have joining us via Zoom from Kaduna, Babajide Kolade Otitoju. Now to our next conversation. The proposed ward delineation in Warri, Federal Constituency of Delta State, has continued to generate controversy as various stakeholders from Ishekiri, Ijaw and Urobo have voiced their concerns about the exercise. A group from the Ishekiri community in Delta State, known as the Warri Reclamation Trust, has urged the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC to discard its recent report on the proposed depiction of the Warri Federal Constituency. During a petition presentation in Abuja, the group's convener, Saye Mene, described the report as fraudulent and called for proper review in line with the Supreme Court ruling. The group said their analysis revealed inaccuracies and distortions in the allocation of wards and units in the proposal. Now, joining us for more discussion on this matter is a public affairs analyst and co-convener, Warri Reclamation Trust, Bright Omagumi. Bright Omagumi, thank you so much for joining us on Journalist Hangout. Yes, thank you very much for having me. All right, let's begin this way. I mean, the Supreme Court judgment of I think 2nd of December 2022, it authorized the delineation of polling units and wards across Warri South, Warri North, and Warri Southwest local government areas of Delta State. But talk to me, where are we on the matter? Yes, a lot of perspective has been, introduced into this matter and several discussions, opinions and points given. But today, as members of the Warri Reclamation Trust, we're here to give a more robust perspective, different from every other perspective anyone has had on this matter. Our perspective is focusing on the job done by INEC. Yes, I agree with you. After the Supreme Court judgment has been handed down, INEC has gone ahead to delineate. And after delineation, they've handed over a report or outcome of this delineation to the members of the constituency, stakeholders of different ethnic nationality. And having received ours as Ishekiris, we've gone through these documents. And of course, using expert views of these coordinates provided by INEC to understand what INEC has done. Eventually, once we did that, we find out clearly that INEC has committed a fraud and a crime against the people of Warri Federal Constituency and against the people of Ishekiri, who are the aboriginal owners of the Warri Federal Constituency. Now, this fraud that we're talking about is very massive, is a monumental fraud that must not be accepted by anyone. In fact, Shekiris are saying we are not accepting this document because of this fraud that we have uncovered. Now, how did we uncover this fraud? INEC, in delivering that document to us, gave us a document that contained communities making up the wards that make up the Warri Federal Constituency. Now, these communities are actually tagged with coordinates, latitude and longitude code that depict the particular location of these communities. Now, once we plot these coordinates, we found out that what we got as a result was quite different from what INEC gave to us. For example, INEC gave us this coordinate of different communities that shows a particular name. For example, you find Christmas Gbene, Headmaster Gbene as name of communities. By the time you plot them, you find out a different name entirely, which is actually the original name that is attached to that coordinate. Now, we also saw INEC importing communities from different parts of, Ondo State and Edo State into Warri North local government area. INEC also went about importing communities with these coordinates from Udu local government area, from Ugeli South local government area, from, of course, Burutu local government area, into Warri Southwest local government to create units that make up ward for the Ijaws. And this was the fraud they committed to give the Ijaws more numbers as against the Shekiris. Many of these coordinates, surprisingly too, fell on water and in the deep forest where we lack habitat. And I was wondering, why would INEC go ahead to
give us coordinates that is positioned or pinpoint on top of the water or in the deep or thick of the forest? Is it that we have, fishes coming to vote during election, or we have some wild animals also participating during election? Now, this is like a summary of the kind of fraud that INEC has committed. But I'll give you a very simple example. If you live around Warri City, many of us are familiar with locations like Miller Waterside. And Miller Waterside is what INEC is now calling Boloma. Surprisingly too, the man, of course, who is pushing the name Boloma, who goes by the name Tunde Smooth, he has now come out to render a letter, through his legal team, saying he never wanted to utilize that name for electoral purpose or for ward delineation. But INEC pick up that name as against the original name, which was used to conduct election in the year 2023. This past election, the name that appeared in that particular location was Miller Waterside. How come overnight we are now having something called Boloma? Just as an example, you go forward to Pesu.
Right, can you hear me? If you're saying that INEC committed fraud, did INEC not consult your group? I mean, what fraud are you actually talking about here?
I think you need to listen deep, because as I'm flowing, I just told you that the coordinate provided by INEC in the document presented to stakeholders contain coordinates that pinpoint the location of each of the communities that they claim to have delineated, making up the unit that forms the ward that they have created. Now, once we plot this coordinate to really now verify the name of these communities as they have posited, we find out that the names are not the same. That is where we find out that Miller Waterside, for example, is now being named Boloma. Places like Pesu, this Sawdust Island, opposite the Pesu market there, is now being called Enwei. These are names that are alien to these areas.
Right, sorry, we're listening to you. We're listening to you. INEC is not in the room, and when you use the word massive fraud, it's a very weighty statement. But when you talk about your cases, definitely we'll listen to INEC to also explain to us. But it's on record that 2 courts have been, they've not been able to stop INEC from carrying out this Supreme Court judgment. So are you not the one, acting contrary to this court ruling?
You missed the point again. I am not discussing, stopping INEC from delineating. And if you've been following the developments, you realize that INEC has delineated. INEC has carried out the order of the Supreme Court to delineate. And INEC has presented the outcome or result or document of this delineation to stakeholders. It is this document that we are questioning. It is this document that we are criticizing as fraudulent, that we are saying is totally wrong and incorrect. It is this document that we are asking INEC to discard. We are not saying INEC should not obey Supreme Court judgment. After all, INEC has obeyed Supreme Court judgment and has delineated. And again, in line with Supreme Court judgment, we are also saying why delineating INEC also obey other Supreme Court judgment as far as land ownership in these areas, is concerned. For example, when we talk about Warri City, which is Warri South, where Warri South is, Warri City, is inside Warri South. Now, there is no other ethnic nationality that own land in Warri other than the Shekiris. The Jaws, for example, are not in Warri South. The Shekiris have won all land cases as far as Warri South is concerned, as well as Warri Southwest and in Warri North. Places they are calling Keyagbene in Warri Southwest, for example, these are places we call Bakokodie. And these places are Ishekiri land. And they've, in fact, when they litigated on these lands many years ago, before many of us were even giving birth to, Ishekiris have won them up to the level of Supreme Court. So if INEC is going to delineate, INEC cannot decide to obey one Supreme Court and discard the other. So we are saying INEC delineate properly. Follow your own guidelines and rules to delineate. Okay. Apply the rules of law. Now, even when we talk about guidelines for delineating, I'll give you a simple example. INEC cannot determine the population of any location in Nigeria without consulting the National Population Commission. Okay. INEC cannot determine the boundary of any federal constituency in Nigeria without consulting the boundary commission. Now, INEC did not consult these institutions of government, but INEC went about adjusting boundary of the Warri Federal constituency to now include Udu local government, which is outside Warri Federal constituency. They are now including Burutu inside Warri Federal constituency. Okay. They are now including Ughelli South, just like they travel to Ondo State and Edo State to import communities into Warri Federal constituency. These are outside the mandate of the Supreme Court. Now, Supreme Court did not give them mandate to do these.
Now, let's have a conversation here. Okay, let's have a conversation. Now, when you talk about, okay, INEC has committed fraud and all of it, INEC cannot do all of this in isolation. Do you have proof about evidence of the people who actually are behind INEC in doing this? And also, will you also be filing this case in court? Will you also be going to court to fight this?
Yes, I was going to go there. The major culprit behind this fraud, as we have encapsulated here, is Professor Rhoda Gumus. She was the one who led the team, and many others, but particularly Professor Rhoda Gumus, she led the team that carried out this delineation in Warri Federal constituency. Professor Rhoda Gumus is an interested party. Professor Rhoda Gumus is from Bayelsa State, an Ijaw woman from Bayelsa State, and a member of the Ijaw leaders of thought. And proud to now, Ishekiri's wrote petition protesting against Professor Rhoda Gumus heading that team because she's an interested party. But INEC refused. INEC continued to allow her go ahead with the job regardless of the concerns raised by Ishekiri. INEC ignored all of these red flags and went ahead to delineate.
Do you
now, INEC has delineated. We have now seen clearly what Ishekiri alluded fierce to prior to now, playing out in the document presented as a result of this delineation.
Okay, I think...
And of course, let me answer your last question. Of course, we are going to go to court with this evidence. And that is how we are going to invite INEC to court to come to explain to us how lands belonging to Ishekiri metamorphosed into Ijaw communities because INEC is delineating. I don't even know where in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria where INEC has been given powers to create communities, create fictitious communities that are not in existence before, and rename existing or aboriginal communities with another name. Imagine that someone is delineating, somewhere here in Lagos. Let's say somebody is delineating Atlantic City. And because they are delineating, Atlantic City will not change from Atlantic City to Surulere. Have you seen that before? Have you heard that anywhere before? That is what we are saying. This is the level of fraud that INEC has committed. If INEC can come out and tell us where communities started changing within 2-3 years, the names change. I gave you an example of Miller Waterside changing from Miller Waterside to Boloama. And I also gave you an example of Pesu Waterside changing to Enwei. Several others. For example, in Warri Side, we are having Okpe as a name of a unit or community. That is alien to Warri South. We are having names like Egburuje. There's nothing like that in Warri South. Funny enough, there are communities belonging to Ishekiri that did not also reflect in this delineation exercise. Ubeji is a major example in Warri South. How come Ubeji, with all that population, was not reflected in this document? Yet, they traveled down to Otegele and brought Otegele to merge with somewhere like Ekuredu-Robo, to merge with someone like Ogunu. Ogunu and Okeru-Robo, for example, the distance between these two communities is so much so that if you want to really delineate and remerge, Ogunu should be joined to Ogbuangwe. And of course, Otegele is already close to Omadina and Obodo. That should make up word over there. So communities, for example, that contain more population did not even expand. I mean, Ishekiri communities did not expand in the numbers of units or word created. Yet, those lacking population growth or those lacking improvement in development was now being splitted into 3-4 to create more words and more units for the judge so that you can give them the number and say they are more than us.
All right, now, you have claimed that INEC lacks the power to create a constituency, to rename communities, or give them something that belongs to Ishekiri, to Ijaws. What institution do you now want to count on to carry out, this assignment?
INEC has been asked to delineate, not to create communities. Please underline that.
Yes.
INEC has been asked to delineate, not to rename communities. If you are going, I gave you a typical example. You cannot delineate and rename Asokoro to Metama. It's unheard of. You are only going to look at, for example, how do you even delineate? Let's even go into the details proper. It is only the continuous voter register that determines increased numbers of voters. Once you look at the register, for example, we are registering every day. That is why INEC bring out campaign for people to go and register. So as you are registering, you are populating that voter register. And INEC will now see that this unit is now overpopulated. We will now need to split. That is how this unit will begin to split and expand. And, you know, the ward becomes so full that you expand or split into two. But that is not even the case. When you check the voter register of the last election, Ishekiri still have the highest figure. How come all of a sudden INEC is redelineating and INEC is creating, you know, numbers of units that is more than what is contained even in the voter register? So you ask yourself the question, where's INEC getting that data from? And I said earlier on, if even INEC want to go by population, the National Population Commission conducted census in the year 2006. So where's the population data that INEC is now relying on to determine increase in population?
Okay, Bright. We're going to cross over to, I guess, other analysts in Kaduna. BKO, do you have a question for Bright?
Yes, I would like to know what efforts they are making by way of maybe court action to ensure that the injustice that they are talking about does not stand. We appreciate the peaceful nature of their agitation and protest, but what legal steps are available to them at this time? Are they prepared to take at this time? Because that area is a very volatile area. There have been communal killings in the past. We don't want that to happen. So we would like to know from him the efforts being made to have this matter resolved in a manner that is justiciable.
Yes, thank you very much. You know, having done a lot of review using the expert knowledge to look at these coordinates and came up with the result, we have done over 30 petitions to different agencies of government. We have written to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to the Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. We have written to the DSS. We have written to the Force Headquarters. In fact, on Monday, we were at the Force Headquarters to throw some more light on our petition with the legal team there of the Nigerian police. We also submitted same to the Commissioner of Police, Asaba. We also at Asaba some few weeks ago. We submitted also to the Boundary Adjustment Commission, the Population Commission, and several other agencies of government. And of course, with this document, we're going to seek redress in the court of law. Like I said earlier on, we want INEC to come and explain to us how delineation became a power to create communities overnight. And this is the major issue on ground that we should be looking at. Many people just think, oh, Ishekris don't want INEC to delineate. We are contesting the position of the Supreme Court, allowing INEC to delineate and saying INEC should not delineate. That is not our position. Our position is the fact that INEC has already obeyed Supreme Court judgment and INEC has delineated. Now that INEC has delineated, INEC gave us a report, and this report is what we have understudied. And what we uncovered in this report is the monumental fraud that we are, accusing INEC of. And we are saying that we will not accept these fraudulent documents being put forward by INEC. We hear in some quarters that they are trying to do some finality, whatever the case may be, but we are telling INEC that we will not accept this and will continue to, protest against this particular fraudulent document and do whatever within the ambits of the law that we can to stop this fraudulent document from flying so that we can address this issue. Now, don't forget that injustice to one is injustice to all. You might be thinking, oh, it's just about what if federal constituency. Who knows what federal constituency will be delineated tomorrow? And once it happens, you would not want your communities to be renamed as a result of ward delineation. You will not want your land to be gifted to any other group in the name of fictitious community being created. You will not want a situation where you will be shortchanged politically because someone used river and, you know, forests to create political units and ward to favor one ethnic group over you. Don't forget, when we even talk about people residing, we're not asking people not to reside on our land. Everybody have right to reside anywhere across the country under the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But laying claim to what is not yours is totally, you know, out of it. You are not supposed to do that. And INEC cannot connive with any ethnic nationality to carry out this crime. Thank you for that position where you said we have been peaceful with the way we've gone about this whole process. But you can imagine if this injustice was being done to the Ijaws. They were the one who started the previous crisis, the 1997 crisis, the 2003, 2004 crisis. We are not going there. The fact that we are not going there doesn't mean we should be taken for granted. And the presidency and everybody should take this matter serious and handle it with the way it will bring justice. We're only interested in justice. That is what we are here to state. Let's have a conversation here. I wouldn't want you to point accusing fingers here and there, okay?
Just like what BKO said, let's just be peaceful about this. My colleague wants
okay, so Bright, part of the things you're demanding is for the INEC staff to be investigated and prosecuted. And a name keep coming. You mentioned one professor who is conniving. Just to put it on record, that claim, you know, resides with you. But then, what do you hope to achieve, you know, asking for these staff members to be investigated and prosecuted, so that we can take it from there?
Now, what we want the security agencies, the government of the day to do is to enforce justice, rule of law. We have said earlier on, or I've said earlier on, that INEC should delineate properly, applying the rule of law and its own guideline. Now, once INEC has failed in that, with the report that has emanated from our delineation, it is now incumbent on the institutions of government to do a proper investigation into these agitations from different quarters, particularly the ones that we have submitted. Like I told you, these coordinates we have submitted to different agencies of government, and it is not rocket science to analyze. Anybody can even pick them up, you know, and plot them. Let's take, for example, you are, you know, in the comfort of your home, and you want to try this. These documents are available online. These documents submitted to us. You can get them and plot this coordinate by yourself, and you see for yourself the fraud that has been committed.
Thank you very much,
and like we have said, these perpetrators of this fraud, headed by Professor Gumus,
thank you so much. Our time is fast spent. Thank you so much. Bright is a public affairs analyst and a co-convener of Warri Reclamation Trust, Bright Omagumi. Thank you so much for coming on Journalist Hangout to talk about this, you know, very critical issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kaidila Dede.
Always a pleasure.
It was a beautiful time having this conversation with you. BKO, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you.
All right, then. And that's it on the Journalist Hangout today. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11. Join us on Sunday from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. for Journalist Hangout on Sunday. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Benga Oreshegun. Bye for now. And God bless Nigeria.